Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Welcome to our Pharmacy Practice Research Virtual Summer Meeting. We are very excited to have you on board. I will first start introducing myself. So my name is Victoria. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney, and I'm the chair of the FIP Pharmacy Practice Research Special Interest Group, which is organizing this event today. And I'm also an associate editor for Research in Social and Administrative Pharmacy. I'm very pleased to introduce you as well to our vice chairs. First one, Charlotta Verner Rosin. She is the vice chair of the Special Interest Group in Pharmacy Practice Research. She is the director of research and continuous development at the Danish College of Pharmacy Practice in Pharmacon. And I'm also very pleased to introduce you to our second vice chair, Fernandez, who is a researcher in the Federal University of Paraná in Brazil. And she's also a consultant and scientific advisor for her. And she's a member of the editorial board of Pharmacy Practice. A few announcements before we start, just letting you know that this webinar is being recorded and it's also being live streamed via YouTube. The recording will be available once we finish on the FIP website. You have the link there on the slide. You may ask questions using the chat box and the question and answer box provided in the Zoom window. You are more than welcome to provide feedback, and you can send your feedback to the email address detailed on the slide. And we encourage you to become a member of FIP. And again, you have the link there. I would like to start sending the apologies from Professor Ross McKinnon. Ross is a strategic professor in cancer research at Flinders Universities in Australia. And as most of you may know, he's the chair of the FIP Board of Pharmaceutical Sciences. So unfortunately, Ross cannot be here with us today, but we would like to thank Ross and the whole BPS for their support in organizing this exciting event. An outline for today's program, we are going to have an opening and welcome, obviously, which we are doing now. After this, we will have an introduction to the FIP Special Interest Group on Pharmacy Practice Research. So we will see how you can become a member, what we do, what events we usually organize, and we will also talk about our social media channel. Then we are going to have 2 sessions of 3-minute presentations. So we had many abstracts submitted for this virtual event, and they were all assessed, and some of the presentations were selected for all our presentations. So we will have researchers presenting during this event. We will have a break in between all those presentations. And after the presentations, we will have 3 very exciting workshops on different topics, such as medication adherence, pharmacoeconomics, and also systematic reviews. And that will be followed by a networking event. So we are hoping to put people and researchers in touch who share same research interests. And then finally, at the end of the session, we will have a closing forum, which I will detail after. Just as an introduction, I'm sure you will know, but a very brief overview of pharmacy practice research. As you may know, it is the scientific discipline that studies the different aspects of the practice of pharmacy and its impact on healthcare systems, medicine use, and patient care. And it has expanded over the last 20 years to encompass different elements such as clinical, behavioral, economic, and humanistic implications of the practice of pharmacy, implementation of innovations like professional pharmacy services and other interventions. A bit about our structure. This SIG, the Pharmacy Practice Research SIG, was created in 2016 with the aim to increase pharmacists' role in global health by allowing access to high-quality international pharmacy practice research. So the specific objectives of this SIG are to disseminate information at an international level across pharmacy practice researchers, to increase the quality and quantity of pharmacy practice research, and finally to establish networks and enable collaboration on major themes for experienced researchers, PhD student, and also masters by research students. We are part of the Board of Pharmaceutical Sciences within FIP. The BPS deals with all FIP scientific activities with the ultimate objective of contributing to the improvement of world health, mainly through disease prevention and treatment strategies. So within the BPS, there are 6 special interest groups, such as drug delivery and manufacturing, new generation of pharmaceutical sciences, new medicines, personalized and precision medicine, pharmacy practice research, and regulatory sciences and quality. As I mentioned, this is our internal structure. We also have 3 focus groups that have been set on specific areas. One on health economics. This is led by Dr. Dalia Dawood. There is another one on pharmacoepidemiology, which is led by Dr. Marcel Boubi. And there is finally one on research methods, which is led by Dr. Fernandez. So you should be able to meet at least one of them during the workshops and the networking event. So we would love you to have you on board. If you are not a member of our SIG, you can become a member. So this is how you can become part of us. So all individual FIP members can choose to be a member of SIG. So that allows you to interact with peers and colleagues with similar interests from all over the world. There are other ways in which you can interact with us. We have a big Facebook group, which we will use during the networking event today. And that's the name of the group, FIP Pharmacy Practice Research Special Interest Group. So you can ask to become a member. You will have to answer a couple of questions, so it's very straightforward. We also have a Twitter account which you can follow. We have run a number of webinars on pharmacy practice research during 2020 and 2021. So again, if you are a member of FIP, you will receive the newsletters and all the updates on digital events that we run. We have been running, well, this is our second meeting for PhD students and supervisors. We did one in Lisbon in 2017. This is our virtual one, considering the current circumstances, and then we will have a winter meeting in Lausanne in 2022, and we will provide further details in the closing event. And you can also come to the Meet the SIGs sessions, which are usually run during the FIP World Congresses, next one in Seville, and also in PSWC. And you also have the email address, which you can use in case you require further information about the SIG. This is the Facebook group which I was talking about. So we encourage you to become a member. If you are not a member yet, please feel free to request your membership. So we have a broad international audience. We are more than 3,000 researchers in the group. So we share ideas, share publications, and we encourage all our members to do the same. And I'm also very excited to announce that today, during today's session, we have implemented the Professor Olivia Vignon Award. As you may know, most of you would know, Olivia was an international leader in pharmacy practice research. He did an outstanding contribution to the advancement of the pharmacy profession, and he was also an extremely good and supportive leader of PhD students and young pharmacy researchers. Olivier was an FIP fellow, and he was an essential member of our SIG. He was a founding member, and without his help, the creation of this SIG would have not been possible. So from now on, in all our events and meetings for PhD students, supervisors, and the events that we are organizing, we will implement this award, the Professor Olivia Vignon Award, and it will be awarded to the best pharmacy practice research presentation during our sessions. So we will share more information at the end of the event. So just going back to today's program, now we have already covered the introduction to our group, the opening and welcome. So we will start with the 3-minute presentations now. So all for you, Charlotta. So as I mentioned before, during the 3-minute research presentations, we will have different researchers from all over the world presenting their research during 3 minutes. And at the end of each session, we will have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions you would like to ask during the presentation, please feel free to leave that in the chat box, and then we will address those questions at the end of the session.
Thank you very much. Can you stop your sharing of the presentation, and then I'll share mine. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see you all here. And I think we should just move forward to this session. And as Victoria said, by the end of it, we will have questions. So I will move forward now. The first presentation is made by Denise Hope. She's at the School of Pharmacy and Medical Sciences in Griffith University, Australia. She's been an Australian community pharmacist for more than 30 years, and she's been a lecturer in pharmacy practice for 13 years. She's passionate about pharmacist education, and she's been awarded international and national teaching recognition. And she is a PhD candidate in gamification of pharmacy education, which is exactly what she's going to talk about today. So I'll give the word to Denise.
Hello, I'm Denise Hope, a lecturer in pharmacy practice at Griffith University, Australia. I'm briefly presenting my PhD research on gamification of pharmacy education. The broad aim of my research was to explore the use of serious games in pharmacy education, and specifically to investigate an extended immersive gamified simulation that we implemented in a new BPharm program from 2016 onward. Our gamified simulation, PharmG, was based on the pharmacy game, or gimmicks, developed by our colleagues at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. PharmG involves student teams competitively managing their own simulated pharmacies. Such simulation allows opportunities for real-world practice in a safe environment without risk of patient harm. Gamifying simulation involves adding elements such as story, scoring, competition, and leaderboards. Through continuous marking of all tasks in PharmG, teams gain or lose patients based on patient and professional outcomes. Across our 5 years of delivery of the game, we've witnessed incredible engagement and learning in our students. My 3-year evaluation of PharmG used a multi-methods approach. Outcomes explored included student competencies, affective learning, and experiential learning. With the phasing out of a superseded MPharm program, we had natural experimental conditions for the first 3 years to compare students who experienced the game and those who did not. My results are summarised on this one slide. The Lit Review identified many games. Much of the research relied on surveys and reported identified experiences. There are opportunities in our to compare the scope and methods used in gamification research and to improve the quality of outputs using recent reporting guidelines, such as the increased across the duration of the game, which is impactful as affective learning is essential to professional development. The control trial revealed that game students had significantly greater improvements in self-assessed competency for 7 of the 26 competencies of our national competency standards, for 2 of the 5 domains, and all of the domains combined. Reflective journals were also analysed qualitatively, guided by semantic analysis. Themes that emerged were teamwork and collaboration, medicine's provision, which focused on dispensing and counselling to simulated patients, patient-centeredness, a focus on future practice, reflecting on the real-world application of the game, and the overall learning experience itself. In summary, my research has identified that gamified simulation in pharmacy education can deliver many positive learning outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please note your questions in the note box, and then I will move forward. I have been helped to see that I share the wrong screen, so I'll just see if I can change that. Is it better now? Do you see that? Thank you very much, Victoria. Then we'll move to another part of the world, to the north in Finland, where Kari Linden will talk about his research. He's a research manager at the University of Pharmacy, Helsinki. He has a PhD and a master in economics, and he's an arrogant professor. He experienced in pharmacy practice research, medical affairs, and market access. And his research interest is in rational pharmacotherapy and multidisciplinary collaboration in the healthcare system. Hang on.
Our study was conducted among the online customers of University Pharmacy Helsinki, Finland. For the study, we used several university pharmacist data resources and made a comprehensive customer survey. Our study indicated that the pandemic strongly increased the use of online pharmacy services, especially during the first wave of COVID-19 pandemic. One key finding was that in special, the use of prescribed medicines increased. According to the linear accuracy analysis, the pandemic peak permanently lifted the trend of online use upward. Similar use peaks were also shown, for example, for OTC painkillers, as well as for D and C vitamins, which had been suggested for the treatment or even prevention of COVID-19. Our study showed that even older customers widely accepted this kind of new online pharmacy services. In the next studies, the long-term effects on the patterns of use of online pharmacy services and the opportunities for pharmacies will be explored. Thank you very much for your interest in our study.
Thank you from Finland. And once again, remember to write down your notes and questions, and we'll take that by the end of the total presentations. Now we'll move back to Australia. This is a proper trip around the world. So we'll move to Diane Mill, which is at the University of Western Australia. She's a PhD candidate. She's passionate in early career pharmacist with experience in hospital and community pharmacy. She's an active member of FIP YPG. And for those who are not familiar with this group, this is the Young Pharmacist group that is also always very inspirational to work with. Her research focus is on improving professionalism in pharmacy practice through enhancing the quality and consistency of the professional behavior of pharmacists. Please.
Do pharmacy practice standards effectively describe behavior? I'm sure I don't really need to explain what a professional practice standard is, but essentially it's a document that contains the expected standards of professional behaviour. That is, it articulates what pharmacists should be doing and how they should be doing it. And if we follow these, it maintains consistency and quality in practice across the profession. So our regulatory bodies and professional organisations use practice standards to communicate to us as pharmacists what we should be doing. In this case, behaviours can be thought of as actions, things like dispensing a prescription or counselling a patient. Now, we obviously want these practice standards to be quite specific because we need to be able to read them, understand them, and enact them with ease. And that way we can ensure that consistent quality behaviour. So when I talk about them being specific, we can borrow some ideas from behaviour change science. And they suggest that behaviour should be specified in terms of who needs to do what, how, where, who for or with, and when, to achieve a level of specificity that means that we can observe that behaviour, but also that we can all interpret it in the same way because none of the details are missing. The AACTT framework is one behavioural specification framework used in this setting that we've borrowed to have a look and apply to our professional practice standards. So do the behaviours described in the Australian Professional Practice Standards for Pharmacists specify action, actor, context, target, and time? We use a structured content analysis to apply the definitions of the framework to an evaluation of the behaviours in this document. And we did this in quite a structured process. So you can see from the results here, the percentage of each component that was met with the action statements or the behaviours that we evaluated. And it's very obvious from these numbers that these details were missing in a lot of instances. Here's an example of one of the practice standards that we evaluated. And you can see here in yellow, that meant the criteria was only partially specified. So for the action, they didn't say how to do it. Confirms could be verbal, it could be written. We don't know what's appropriate there. They haven't told us. It's also missing who should be doing it and when they should be doing it. So that's an example of why the behaviours were quite general. They weren't very specific. So these practice standards aren't very specific. They were designed to apply to the entire profession and people working in different roles. So they were designed to be generalizable. But because they're generalizable, they're not specific enough that they're usable. We can't use them to measure individual or profession-wide practice, and therefore we can't use them to design behavioural interventions to influence that practice. So how do we balance these two things? That's the next question.
Thank you very much. Always an inspiration when the presentation starts with a question for the future. Now we move on to Croatia, where Iva Busancic from the University of Zagreb, Faculty of Pharmacy and Biochemistry, will talk to us later today. So she's a registered community pharmacist with 10 years of experience in the City of Pharmacies in Zagreb. She's a PhD candidate in the branch of pharmaceutical sciences in the University of Zagreb at the Faculty of Pharmacy and Biochemistry, and her research focus is new aspects of pharmaceutical care and specifically on deprescribing.
Good afternoon. Today I will present the preliminary results of a benzoate study, which explores the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on benzodiazepine prescribing. Prolonged use of benzodiazepines has been linked to unfavorable outcomes such as tolerance, dependence, memory impairment, and psychomotor retardation. It is expected that a COVID-19 pandemic will have a negative impact on mental health, which may lead to increase in prescribing and use of benzodiazepines. Community pharmacists have a role in safe use of medicine, and when it comes to benzodiazepines, they should recognize potential overuse, educate patients, collaborate with prescribers, and suggest prescribing as a way to combat inappropriate use. The objective of our study was to compare benzodiazepine dispensing between the COVID-19 pandemic period, so from April 2020 to March 2021, with the pre-pandemic period from April 2019 to March 2020 in a community pharmacy in Croatia. This is a retrospective cohort study in which we collected dispensing data for patients who filled out 2 or more prescriptions for benzodiazepines prescribed for anxiety disorders. The collected data included age, sex, number of medicine, number of comorbidities, and type of benzodiazepines. Patients who were prescribed antidepressants, antipsychotics, anticonvulsives, alongside with benzodiazepines for the same diagnosis were excluded. We have identified 170 patients, of which 91 were included. The majority of patients were female and the median age was 66. More than half of patients was using more than 5 medicine, and more than half of them were older than 65. About 30% of patients had more than 5 comorbidities, and 37% of patients were using 2 or more different benzodiazepines at the same time. Diazepam and alprazolam were 2 most commonly used benzodiazepines. There were no statistically significant differences between cohorts when it comes to age, sex, type of benzodiazepines, and number of medicines, but patients in the pre-COVID cohort actually had more comorbidities. In the COVID-19 cohort, we have identified almost 30% new patients who were not using benzodiazepines in the year prior. 1/3 of all patients were using benzodiazepines for more than 4 consecutive months. To conclude, our preliminary results show that we have an increase in number of patients who started using benzodiazepines during COVID. And for us pharmacists, that should mean that we should focus on identifying potential prescribing candidates, especially in vulnerable groups such as elderly patients or patients who have inappropriate polypharmacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to Brazil, where this is difficult. Aline de Fatima Bonetti. It's probably all wrong, but I'm sure you help. You understand what I mean. She's at the Federal University of Paranaíba in Curitiba in Brazil. She's a PhD candidate in pharmaceutical sciences, clinical pharmacy, and hospital pharmacy specialists. She's a substitute professor of pharmacy, and she's a member of the permanent education group of Federal Pharmacy Council in Brazil. Please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aline Bonetti, and I'm a PhD student in the Federal University of Paraná, Brazil. Today, I will present you a few results of this study, meta-analysis of pharmacy services, and overview of their quality, data transparency, and replicability. So, a systematic search was performed in PubMed, Scopus, and Web of Science databases to identify this meta-analysis. First of all, we mapped their characteristics. Work conduction and reporting were observed in the meta-analysis of pharmacy services, especially in those that favored the pharmacist intervention, considering the following characteristics: availability of search strategy, and reports the quality analysis and the quality of the evidence in the conclusion section. Other components were also reported, such as the number of the protocol, the following the Cochrane recommendations, and the provision of the raw data. We also found a poor methodological and reporting quality in our updated overview, considering the compliance with the PRISM statement and the use of the revised UMSTER tool. Additionally, we found that around 76% of these meta-analyses had a high risk of bias according to the Hobbs instrument. Finally, we replicated 11 meta-analyses of pharmacist-led medication review for the outcomes of mortality and hospital admission. We found that most of them did not reveal the same pooled effect sizes in comparison with the original studies, and also failed to report all meta-analytical data, such as Q-value and statistical method used. Additionally, the calculation of the prediction interval demonstrated that the uncertainty predicting intervals of the effect sizes were always underestimated. And finally, we proposed some recommendations to increase the study's transparency, reproducibility, and quality of meta-analysis from the biomedical field. Provide all data used to build the meta-analysis and the complete statistical results, inform about imputed data and data obtained from different sources, perform a sensitivity analysis when imputed or unpublished data are used, inform about the statistical method, models, effect size measure, and the prediction interval, number needed to treat, and the fragility index whenever possible. I feel grateful to all the groups and institutions that allowed this research to happen, and also to this amazing event provided by the FIP organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we move to Nigeria, where Samira Abdu-Agaya from the University of Ahmadu Bello in Zaria will talk to us. She's a PhD candidate and a lecturer at the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacy Practice in Nigeria. She has a master in clinical pharmacy from the University of Queensland in Australia, and she has a research interest in pharmacy practice and education. Please.
Good day. The title of this presentation is Outpatient Medication Dispensing and Counseling Practices in Hospital Pharmacy Settings, a theory-informed mixed method study. Medication dispensing and counseling are routine but important tasks carried out within pharmacy settings that are linked to the optimal use of medications by patients. Assessing factors associated with these tasks are important steps in evaluating the quality of services provided and identifying areas for improvement. Consequently, the aim of this work was to describe outpatient medication dispensing and counseling practices in selected hospital pharmacies using the Donabedian model as a conceptual framework. The Donabedian model provides a framework for examining the provision of health services and evaluating the quality of services provided. It is made up of three components: structure, process, and outcomes. Structure has to do with the organizational or contextual factors that affect the provision of the service in question. Process encompasses the activities carried out on and for the patient, while outcomes have to do with the end results of the services provided. Mixed methods were used to collect both quantitative and qualitative data from 19 outpatient hospital pharmacies. To collect data about structure, a survey was carried out and 2 types of qualitative interviews. So key informant interviews with the heads of the outpatient pharmacies and in-depth interviews with pharmacists and pharmacy technician staff working within the units. To collect data about process, an observational study was carried out. 2 types of observations were conducted: structured observations to quantify the amount of medicines information provided during medication counseling, and more general observations to look out for things like dispensing errors and the likes. With respect to outcomes, 2 outcomes were considered: patient satisfaction and medication knowledge. Exit interviews with patients were used to collect this data. This slide gives you an idea of the type and quantity of data that we ended up with. So our key findings, we found out that with respect to structure, things like the absence of operating procedures and guidelines all affected the provision of this service. With respect to process, we found out that there was inadequate provision of medicines information to patients and that dispensing errors occurred during these processes. With respect to outcomes, we found out that patient satisfaction with these services were high, although their medication knowledge was poor. So in conclusion, several problems were identified with the structures, processes, and outcomes associated with these services and the outpatient pharmacies we studied. Using a framework allowed us to get a really big picture view of what was going on, and which was useful when it was time for intervention design, and also allowed us to give very specific feedback to the pharmacy units as to how they could improve. It also allowed for triangulation of our findings. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I just realized when you type in your question, please type in who the question is for. Otherwise, it would be hard for me after to coordinate between them. So now we move again to this time to Indonesia, where Sindra Triyana from the School of Pharmacy Institute of Technology Bandung will talk to us. She's a lecturer since 2015, and she has her research interest in clinical pharmacy, pharmacovigilance, digital pharmacy services, and pharmacy practice. She's recently collaborated with universities in South Korea, the Netherlands, and Japan. Please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Indra Triyunian. I'm from School of Pharmacy, Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. Now I will explain to you our research about telepharmacy needs assessment based on student perspective in Indonesia. First, I want to explain to you about the background and objective and methodology. As we know, now we face the COVID-19 pandemic. So because of this pandemic, it caused some limitation of activities such as social distancing. Because of this limitation, this condition encouraged the health services. In Indonesia, we widely use telemedicine, but we just want to develop telepharmacy. So this research will provide the needs assessment of telepharmacy based on student perspective. And we will answer this question, is telepharmacy or TP needed in Indonesia, and how about the future? For methodology, we use online questionnaire with ethical clearance as well. And then this questionnaire had been tested for validity and reliability tests. This survey had been held from March until April 2021, and is sampling especially for students. Here is the result. The first one is respondents of respondent area of the research. Almost the respondent stay in Java Island. And then about willingness to use telepharmacy, 100% people want to use these telepharmacy services. Even 35% students answers maybe want to use these services. And we also ask about the future of telepharmacy if it will be developed in Indonesia. So almost the respondent answered the services should be accessible 24 hours, and they prefer to use chat and app-based or web-based application. And this is 3 most pharmaceutical care services for telepharmacy. The first one is medication counseling, and then second one is drug information, and the last one is adverse events reporting and feedback. So based on this research, we can conclude that almost students needs these services. And this is the further research and collaboration in telepharmacy field in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now it's time to move to Malaysia, where we will meet Wei Ying Wong. He's a lecturer at the Monash University of Malaysia. He's a certified geriatric pharmacist with the Board of Pharmacy Specialties. He's a member of the WHO Global Patient Safety Network involved in the tackling of medication-related harm, and he has a research interest in pharmacy education, public health, and health economics. Please.
Hi, everyone. My research team and myself would like to thank the organizers first for an opportunity to share a project titled Online Pharmacy Purchase Habits, Perspectives from Malaysia. The ongoing fourth industrial revolution, together with the global pandemic of COVID-19, has seen the growth of e-commerce in businesses, including community pharmacies. The widespread disruptions have certainly been felt, with studies reporting impacts on medication access and provision of counseling and patient education. In Malaysia, the selling of prescription items via the internet has actually been prohibited. Although so, there were recent efforts to allow bricks and mortar community pharmacies to register on third-party e-commerce online platforms, allowing them to sell only supplements, traditional products, and over-the-counter items. Against this backdrop, we sought to investigate current consumers' habits and some of the preferences. We adopted a cross-sectional method using an online questionnaire, and data was collected from March to May 2021. The questionnaire was disseminated via Qualtrics and promoted via snowballing methods. In addition to demographics information, we also asked them about the history and habits of purchasing items and some other issues related with it. We received ethics approval from Monash University Human Research Ethics Committee. From the completed data, we found that majority of respondents were 19 to 24-year-olds. And overall, 63% of respondents reported not buying pharmacy items online because they are primarily concerned about the quality of medicines. Some other barriers reported included bad user experience, such as forceful account creation before a purchase can be made. Those who bought pharmacy items online via third-party e-commerce providers, interestingly, did not verify whether the seller was from a registered pharmacy. Respondents also chose real-time chat for advice and recommendations, proper delivery and linkage to clinics or hospitals for prescription sharing, some of the preferred services that an online pharmacy can provide. Majority of respondents being younger could have been a potential limitation, although we felt this is due to the electronic version of the questionnaire that was used. Although so, this is still useful to help inform future considerations for virtual pharmaceutical professional services. The study also provides a glimpse of current consumers' habits and informs future considerations with the increased utilization of technology in healthcare. It also provides input when developing a regulatory framework for the provision of such services. These are some of my references. I'd like to just again acknowledge my research team and the institution. Thank you again for your time and for listening.
Thank you. Now we move to United Kingdom, where Saliha Al-Faifi at the School of Pharmacy, University of Nottingham. She's a PhD candidate, a lecturer, and her research interest is pharmacy practice and policy. Please.
Hello, everyone. After the introduction of the pharmaceutical care concept in 1990, the practice of pharmacy has moved from the traditional focus on the products to the focus on advanced patient care. This shift implies an expansion of pharmaceutical services and pharmacist roles. To meet their expanded roles, pharmacists need to be qualified with the required competencies, including knowledge, skills, and attitude, to deliver the full range of services and to keep pace with the challenges of global health and patient care. The importance and usefulness of competencies has expanded in the pharmacy profession. The evidence shows that the use of competency frameworks show an observable and significant improvement of pharmacist performance, as it helps to identify knowledge gaps, tailor learning activities, and foster continuing professional development. In 2012, the International Pharmaceutical Federation, FIB, developed the Global Competency Framework, GBCF, to support the early career practitioners' development worldwide. It includes a set of competencies and behavioral statements that can be used as a mapping tool to develop country-specific frameworks based on the local needs of pharmacy practice and pharmacist professional development. In Saudi Arabia, there is no national-level competency framework for pharmacists. Therefore, this study aimed to investigate the applicability of the GBCF in order to use it as a basis for developing a national pharmacy competency framework. To achieve this aim, we conducted a cross-sectional online survey of the practicing pharmacists in different settings between August and November 2020. We asked the participants to rank the relevance of the GBCF competencies and behavioral statements to their own practice using a 4-point Likert scale. The findings showed a broad agreement on relevance to practice for 84% of the behaviors included in the GBCF. The pharmaceutical public health cluster scored the highest percentage of relevant responses, followed by the professional personnel cluster. On the other hand, a higher percentage of not relevant responses were evident in the organization and management cluster. The observed non-relevancy was associated with nationality, gender, and area of pharmacy practice. This indicates that GBCF require modification to be appropriate for the local needs of the Saudi pharmacy practice. The findings from this exercise will be used as a base to develop a foundation-level competency framework for early career pharmacists and address knowledge gaps and learning needs required to attain and maintain pharmacist competence to practice. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move to the last speaker in this section. This is my very good colleague, Bjarke, which is employed here at Pharmacon at the Danish College of Pharmacy Practice. He has a master in pharmacy from 2002 and a PhD in pharmacy in 2008. He works here at Pharmacon in the group of research and development, and his research interest is prescribing, medication review, and pharmacy practice in general. Please, Bjarke.
Thanks to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to share our results from a scoping review on the role of pharmacists in prescribing. Prescribing is the planned process of dose reduction or stopping of medication that might be causing harm or no longer be of benefit. Focus on prescribing has led to better health outcomes for patients, and with this review, we wanted to investigate the role of pharmacists throughout the process of prescribing. I will start with the conclusion before describing how it was done, followed by our results in more detail. So our conclusion sounds: pharmacists contribute to prescribing through the support of both doctors and patients in primary and secondary healthcare. We identified studies involving prescribing with involvement of pharmacists, and we contacted our national and international networks to include unpublished work too. We screened a total of 387 studies, then using a predefined set of criteria, narrowing it down to 23. The review showed that pharmacists contribute to prescribing in both primary and secondary health settings, such as hospitals, elderly homes, general practitioners, and community pharmacists. Pharmacists are involved in all steps of prescribing, starting with screening of the patient's medications for inappropriate medicine and assessment of potential candidate prescribing. Communication with the prescribing physician could be in person, by phone, or in writing, some of this interprofessional, particularly in hospital settings. 5 studies described how pharmacists could be authorized to prescribe by protocol. After approval from the prescribing physician, the pharmacist could prescribe, adjust, or stop the use of specific medicine. Dialogue with patients was described in 16 of the identified studies and could be part of any steps from identification of inappropriate medicines to follow up on prescribing. 4 studies covered how the prescribing included follow-up sessions to support the patient burden. Lastly, a few studies showed that pharmacists could also be engaged in prescribing through teaching either the patients or health professionals. Let me, as a closing remark, highlight the conclusion, making it clear that our scoping review showed that pharmacists contribute to prescribing through the support of both doctors and patients in primary and secondary health care. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And then we will move on to the questions. And what I will do is that I'll stop the sharing, and then we can move into the chat box instead. I'll just see if we have questions here. Do we have any questions for my question? I have one here from Fernandez. My question is to Denise Hope. First, congratulations on the amazing work. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on the mixed methods approach that you used? How was the thematic analysis performed?
Thank you for your question. I had 733 reflective journals from the students who participated in our gamified simulation over 3 years. And that was a huge volume of analysis to go through. So we adopted a fairly unique approach and actually conducted a semantic analysis first using Leximancer. And that really looks at the co-occurrence and frequency of the words in the text and helps to broadly, articulate what the major themes were. And then I conducted a traditional thematic analysis in vivo guided by the themes that we'd sort of already identified in semantic analysis. So that was one of the approaches. Some of the other analyses that I've conducted were in a controlled trial. Students self-assessed their competencies against the national framework in Australia for 26 competencies, and they did that pre and post their last semester of university. So for the control group, it was just a traditional semester, but for our game playing new Bachelor of Pharmacy students, it was pre and post the game, and we found some significant changes there. And then another experiment, if we can call it, the same journals were analysed for affective learning, and that was a quantitative study using a validated affective learning tool. And the good news is there was evidence of affective learning, and it increased across the duration of the game. So
thank you very much for that. The next question is from Fernandez Limos, and it's for Diane Mill. Congrats on your research, which I consider highly relevant to improve the definition of the role and activities expected from pharmacists in practice. Have you created a template, or even better, have you reformulated any of the standards to better fit to the pattern you showed? That could be instructional for worldwide pharmacist societies.
Thank you for that question. I think it's one I get every time I talk about this topic. I have consulted on a few different practice standards and given feedback to suggest they make them more specific. We yet to develop a framework or example of what that might look like. It's somewhat dependent, I guess, on the organisation writing them, what the purpose of the document is. A suggestion that I've had that I'd like to explore a bit more is having digital practice standards that you can actually click on or hover over, and they give you examples of more specific behaviours. I'm very involved with the Pharmaceutical Society here in Australia, whose standards we reviewed. So at our next review of those practice standards, we're looking to hopefully address a few of those more. Huge amount of work still needs to be done in this space, because I feel like we just started to touch on improving them. So if anyone's interested, get in touch and we'll see what we can do about it. But we're in the process of trying to look at what might be a good template and how that would actually be useful to people as well around the world. So we'll certainly share anything we come up with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I have a more general question. So I'll first open this to the speakers, and then maybe after Victoria, you can address the question. What research work pharmacists should do? In which subjects and which journals they should prefer to publication or for publication? Any of the speakers have a comment? Otherwise, I'll give the floor to Victoria. Victoria, I think it's for you.
So regarding the topics, we had a slide at the beginning of the session regarding the definition and scope of pharmacy practice research. So I think anything that fits with that definition is within the scope of pharmacy practice, and anything that hasn't been researched yet, and that can potentially have an impact on patient care, on the profession, on healthcare systems, should be a priority for research in this area. So we talk about economics, about implementation science, sustainability, about patient outcomes, about professional pharmacy services. So again, anything, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So anything that has already been researched and that has demonstrated evidence or shouldn't be researched again, but anything that fits within the scope of pharmacy practice according to our overall definition, as we presented at the beginning of the session, should be a priority. Regarding publication, that's a bit tricky. I believe there is a bit of debate. Where should pharmacy practice researchers publish? So my preference would be pharmacy journals. I know probably compared to other journals, they don't have the highest impact factor, but that's something we need to work with as researchers, because unless we publish high quality research in those journals, we won't be able to progress with those journals. So I know we all publish in not only in pharmacy, but also in medical, pharmacoepidemiology journals. But yeah, we should be putting a little bit of effort in publishing high quality research in pharmacy journals.
Thank you very much for that, Victoria. Then I'll move to Felicia Williams. I know that it's been answered, the question, but I just think we should take it briefly because Sindra has already answered. But the Felicia asks, what is the presentation on telepharmacy? So that's the one from Indonesia. Were there any pre-testing of the research method? And Sindra, if you could just tell what you wrote.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlotte. And others. Actually, my research about telepharmacy is use pre-testing for the students, and it almost, distributed to 30 students. We use this pre-testing for a validity test and reliability test. So after this test, we should construct a questionnaire, and then we test the validity using Pearson moment test, and then for the reliability, we use Cornbar alpha test. After we see R value is more than a specific amount, so it will be distributed to the students, and the total sample after pretesting is 249 students. So when this pretesting was done, so we just distributed it to the sample 30 students for the sample, and then we validate it and we test the reliability. After that, we distribute it to the other sample. And so with this pretesting, the total is 279 students with this pretesting sample. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. And then I move to Aline Achila, which states, I'm so interested with the discussion of Sir Abrahamson regarding deprescribing. Maybe more research next time. Bjarke, will you answer that, please?
Yeah, thank you very much for your interest and question. I think that more research is always needed, but with the results we already have today, I think it's just as important we use the data available to try and implement some of all the good results that's already shown that when pharmacists work together with other health professionals, it is actually already now possible to screen for inappropriate medication, come with candidates for deprescribing, and follow the deprescribing process together with, for example, the physician or nurses or other people to improve the medication for the patients and their health outcome.
And then Bjarke, if you stay tuned, and also Eva, because there's one more on deprescribing.
Yeah.
Deprescribing, what specific proportions of deprescribing were achieved in primary and secondary settings?
We have not actually looked at how much is from primary and secondary. We have more looked at how is the pharmacist involved in deprescribing with other healthcare professionals and in collaboration with the patient. Some of we did describe how many studies were located at other hospital or elderly homes or the general practice or at the community pharmacy, but all settings were represented in many of the studies. So there are certainly possibilities to identify interventions that can be implemented.
Thank you very much, Bjarke. And then Eva, do you have a comment from Croatia?
Sure. So
I agree with Bjarke with everything that he said. So there's quite a lot of research already been done. It's important for different healthcare systems to see what type of deprescribing intervention they're able to implement in their own healthcare system, because it may be different. And you might see a lot of different barriers to deprescribing within your pharmacy practice. So I think that our future research should focus on that aspect as well.
Thank you very much. Next question is also for Bjarke from Victoria. And she asked, my question goes to Bjarke Abrahamsen. Great work and great presentation. I was wondering if you used any specific guidance for conducting the scoping review.
Yeah, we as it was a scoping review, we were not particularly looking for any outcome. We were identifying studies where a pharmacist was involved and where the pharmacist involvement was described, so that we could see, okay, what was their work situation, what healthcare professionals did they collaborate with, did they interact with the patient, was there any follow-up, did they interact with other healthcare professionals, and also what part of the deprescribing, was it only interaction with the patient, or was it teaching of healthcare professionals, physicians, etc.
Thank you very much.
I don't know, Charlotte, if I can add another comment. Yeah, and it's just to give an example of how the collaboration can be. At the moment, we are testing an intervention where a community pharmacy is collaborating with a local general practice, where both places identify patients that use proton pump inhibitors, and they discuss the patient, and if the patient are found as a candidate for deprescribing, then the pharmacist will actually have 2 to 3 follow-ups and try to deprescribe in collaboration with the patient. So that's just a very simple example of how a community pharmacy and a general physician or general practice, they can collaborate.
Thank you very much. We stay on the deprescribing. I think we will get this answer from Croatia, because you probably have numbers on this one. What proportion of inappropriate medicines were observed? And how many patients were identified as candidates for deprescribing?
We're still quite early in analyzing all of our data when it comes to the proportion of patients who had inappropriate medicines. So we have to, we're actually still discussing what type of PIMS scale we are going to use to identify what would be an inappropriate medicine. So actually we should look maybe at every patient individually, which is a bit hard regarding the entire study. So I really cannot answer what like proportion of patients had an inappropriate medicines. And the second was how many patients were identified as candidates for deprescribing. So actually about 30% of our patients in this preliminary result would be a potential candidate for deprescribing, because they had more than 4 benzodiazepines benzodiazepine prescriptions filled, and they also had like age was the problem. They were older, but we still have to identify their medication, whether or not there's something else in that would indicate that candidate to be even better candidate for deprescribing.
Thank you very much for that. I think that is about it when I look at the chat now. I don't think there's any more questions. Fernandez is nodding. She's helping me also to keep a track on everything. Okay, I'd just like to thank you all the speakers, but also all of the participants. This online media can be hard to actually start a dialogue, but you showed me now that it is possible. So please bring that into the workshops this afternoon, and please bring that into the next session also. So now we're going to have a break, and we'll actually have a break of half an hour. So I will see you back here at 11:30 Central European Time. Thank you very much. See you.
Okay, welcome back everyone. We hope you have enjoyed your coffee, your break. So now we are going to have our second part of the 3-minute presentations, and our Vice Chair, Fernanda Tenin, will lead the discussion and the session. Thank you, Fernanda, all yours.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Hello, everyone. So my name is Fernanda, and it's a pleasure to be here today hosting this event alongside with Victoria and Charlotte. We also appreciate all the organization and support provided by FIP for this event to occur. So now we will start the second section of the 3 minutes presentations. Please feel free to ask questions and provide your feedback by using the chat box. By the end of the session, we will discuss some of the topics of these presentations. So let's start with the presentation of Claire Vissé. Claire is from the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Toxicology from the Leiden University Medical Center, the Netherlands. She's a pharmacist and a PhD student, and her research interests are on optimizing and personalizing pharmaceutical care for lung patients in a primary care setting. Welcome.
Fernanda, we cannot hear the sound of the presentation, I believe.
Let's see. Maybe now you can hear it.
Not yet.
No.
Fernanda, did you share sound before sharing the slides?
Maybe, let me see. So how can I see if I am sharing the sound?
Before sharing the slides,
yeah.
When you click on this button on the left bottom side, you will see a tick box. It's written share sound. You have to tick it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's click again. Sorry for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to present the study we've been working on concerning the development and validation of the Respiratory Adherence Care Enhancer Questionnaire, also known as RACE. This tool is intended to facilitate tailored care by healthcare professionals in order to optimize the self-management of inhaled corticosteroids in asthma patients. Suboptimal self-management of ICS as maintenance therapy is frequently observed in clinical practice, with approximately 50% of patients following the instructions given, which is associated with poor outcomes such as exacerbations. Driving factors to suboptimal self-management are complex and consist of a range of cognitive, affective, and practical barriers, with a considerable inter-individual variability. Identifying and overcoming these barriers is a major challenge in clinical practice. Therefore, we developed and validated the RACE questionnaire to identify these individual barriers to self-management. This questionnaire is based on the theoretical domains framework, which offers a set of domains under which these behavioral barriers can be arranged. This framework is based on psychological theories of behavior change. The development comprised of an inventory on self-management barriers based on a literature review, which were then structured according to the TDF domains. The relevance and completeness of this set were assessed by a panel of experts. Corresponding questions were formulated and face validity was assessed. This resulted in the RACE questionnaire, consisting of 6 TDF domains, 10 self-management barriers with 23 corresponding questions. A cross-sectional study was performed to validate the RACE questionnaire, assessing the internal consistency and criterion validity. Asthma patients were invited to fill out the RACE questionnaire prior to a semi-structured interview, which served as golden standard. Barriers detected from the questionnaire were compared to barriers mentioned in the interview. Acceptable to good Cronbach alpha values and acceptable sensitivity and specificity values were observed for these barriers. A concept of a personal barrier profile has been depicted in the figure on the right, where barriers are shown as red when present or green when not present. In conclusion, the RACE questionnaire yields adequate psychometric characteristics to identify barriers to self-management of ICS therapy in asthma patients, and is therefore ready to be applied in consultations to facilitate tailored care by healthcare professionals. Further research will focus on an additional guide with interventions to overcome these barriers and to evaluate the implementation and effectiveness of this tool in clinical practice. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. So moving on, our next presenter is Noelia Yang. She's from the University of Oslo, Norway, soon to be a hospital pharmacist at Stavanger University Hospital, graduate Master of Pharmacy in Oslo in 2021, and a Bachelor in Psychology, included an exchange program at her homeland, Vietnam. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Nhu Nguyen, and I graduated from University of Oslo. My master thesis is about language barriers between community pharmacists and immigrants, identifying coping strategies with design thinking method. Design thinking method appropriate enabled a human-centered approach, understanding the human needs. It is an iterative process, meaning it is not linear. Applied design thinking method is used to enhance innovation and to solve problems. My master thesis has applied the 5-stage model proposed by D School of Stanford. The 5 stages are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. In 2020, 15% of population in Norway are immigrants. Health information is rarely available in other languages than Norwegian or English. Language barriers may result in medication errors and reduce adherence. My master thesis aims to identify coping strategies from pharmacists and immigrant patients when a language barrier occurred. Based on the findings, aims to develop and test a communication tool. I conducted mixed method to gather data. We collected questionnaires from 72 pharmacy staff. I had face-to-face interview in my mother language with 5 immigrant patients from Vietnam, and I observed 150 dialogues between pharmacists and immigrant patients from 5 community pharmacies in Oslo. The most frequently used coping strategies to overcome language barriers, especially when bilingual staff were not available, were visual aids, like pictures from the phone, empty medicine packages, or pointing at the medicine list. Based on the visual aids, there were created many ideas during brainstorming sessions, and after 1001 post-it notes, we wanted to make comic strips. Producing those strips were a proactive and iterative process with lots of feedback rounds. We illustrated 12 situations. This is one of them, an interaction between 2 medicines. We wanted to keep it non-verbal, so we had to avoid the word wait and instead illustrate a person who is waiting. So what do you see? Do you get the message? This prototype was tested for guessability with 5 Vietnamese immigrants. 4 pharmacy staff tested usability at community pharmacy in Southwest Norway. There are considerable language barriers between pharmacy staff and immigrant patients with limited Norwegian proficiency. These comic strips are meant to break linguistic barriers to improve the provision of pharmaceutical care for immigrant patients. Applied design thinking method promoted human-centered insight from both pharmacists and immigrant patients. Thanks to International Pharmaceutical Federation, the Pharmacy Practice Research, for the opportunity to present my masterpieces. And I want to say thanks to everyone who made these masterpieces possible. Tusen tack.
Thank you very much. So just to remember, please feel free to ask questions using the chat box. We will discuss that at the end of all presentations. Moving on, it's my pleasure to announce our presenter, Noelia Fernandez. She's a PhD student in pharmacy, University of Granada, Spain. A research project coordinator of implementation program, study for the implementation of a minor armament service in community pharmacy. She's a pharmacist on the Spanish Society of Community Pharmacy. So welcome.
Morning, my name is Noelia Amador. I'm from Spain. My work today is about a minor armament service in community pharmacy and translating evidence into practice. Approximately 25% of pharmacists' time is used to manage minor armament and to deal with dire product requests, and there is variability between pharmacies. Nowadays, some countries provide a formal minor armament service, although most countries don't have this service included in the health policy or is not going to be remunerated in the near future. Following an impact study carried out in 2018, and in order to translate evidence into practice and to give continuity and sustainability to the positive results obtained, a pragmatic effectiveness implementation hybrid design is being carried out at a national level in Spain for 12 months. As the intervention of this study, the components of these interventions were standard operational procedures agreed with GP organization for 31 minor ailments, an IT program that guided pharmacy through the consultation process, and pharmacy training and practice change facilitator support, and evaluation of the fidelity, reach, and feedback. This is a large study where all the practice data is being collected through the IT system, and it's been validated by researchers, and weekly and monthly reports are generated through pharmacy practice change facilitators and professional organizations. As the result of the first 8 months of the study, 1,246 pharmacists were trained. 64% of these pharmacies from 611 pharmacies recorded at least one intervention, and over 8,100 consultations were recorded in the first 8 months. 9.3% of these consultations were referred to the GP according to the SOPs agreed. Symptom resolution was measured 10 days after the consultation, with a result of 8.5 points in a scale between 1 and 10. And also fidelity and quality of life measure issues were found, and they're being dealt with. As conclusion for the first 8 months of the study, we can conclude that similar clinical results to the impact study reflect clinical success of the service. A minor ailment service carried out in community pharmacy using the co-design method had the potential to reduce variability of practice and increase consumer safety. This study is being carried out through the COVID-19 pandemic, which may have limited the implementation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter is Anna Spasic. She is from the Department of Pharmacy, Faculty of Medicine, University of Nice, Serbia. She has a master's degree in pharmacy, and currently she is a PhD student and teaching assistant at the Department of Pharmacy at the University of Nice. Her research focus is on pharmacokinetics and clinical pharmacy. Let's hear her.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Spasic.
I am a PhD student and a teaching assistant at the Department of Pharmacy, Faculty of Medicine, University of Niš. On behalf of my team, I will present the results of our research regarding the readiness of the elderly for smart technology solutions. We investigated the readiness of the elderly to accept and apply smart technology solutions that allow patient approach to be more convenient, efficient, and personalized. The study enrolled 220 respondents older than 65 years who live in Niš. The research was conducted using a survey consisting of questions regarding respondents' demographic characteristics, diseases, medication, problems they have experienced during drug usage, respondents' perception of the pharmacist's role in therapy management, and respondents' readiness to use new technology solutions considering drug usage. The average age was 73.47 years. The most common diseases were hypertension, diabetes mellitus, and hyperlipidemia. Polypharmacy was observed in 32.67%, while drug-related problems, omitted dose, wrong dose, or wrong dosing interval occurred in 66.34% of respondents. The pharmacist was recognized by 82.18% as a person who can significantly help them use medication appropriately. More than half of the surveyed population had a positive attitude toward the use of smart technology solutions that would facilitate the proper drug administration. Still, only 68.32% of the respondents had internet access, limiting the use of modern, smart technology solutions that are mostly dependent on the internet. The findings suggest that the elderly may have positive attitudes regarding modern technology as part of routine healthcare. Still, limited internet access is a signal for additional education, which will facilitate the usage of drugs. The pharmacists, recognized as trustworthy healthcare professionals, may be significant in this process. It would be emphasized that the filling of smart pillboxes is very important, as well as the stability of active substances in them. Please don't hesitate to contact us at the email addresses below if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. Let's go now with the presentation of Amaya. She's from the University of the Basque Country in Spain. She has a degree in pharmacy, also in Spain. She is now a PhD student, and her research interests are on pharmacy practice and research methods.
Hello everyone, I'm Amaya, and today I'm going to talk about the integration of the community pharmacy. Community pharmacy is recognized as a supplier of medicines in healthcare system, but there continues to be a lack of acceptance of community pharmacy as a patient-oriented health service provider by policymakers and governments. Recently, there have been many calls by professional organizations nationally and internationally for the need to integrate community pharmacy in the primary health care system. However, it is not clear what integration is or what it means. So our research aims to find out what integration really is, particularly for the perspective of the community pharmacy. We are interested to search for models and frameworks of integration which will meet the needs of the healthcare system, community pharmacy, and patients. Following a manual search of the major journal in the discipline, International Journal of Integrated Care for the period 2000 to 2021, we retrieved 50 relevant papers. We did a systematic search in PubMed as well, using this query, from where we obtained a further 14 papers. After reviewing these papers, it was evident that community pharmacy is not integrated into the system, that the concept of integration is unclear, and that there is a confusion in the use of the terms integration and integrated care. It can be said that integrated care is a consequence of integration. The important conclusion is that there is heterogeneity in terminology depending on whose perspective was taken: system, organizational, social, population, patient. Nevertheless, we found common key concepts in most of the definitions, including bringing together services, a continuum of services, coordination at different levels, coherent set of methods and models, connectivity, collaboration, and creating a common structure between independent stakeholders. There is a need to produce an appropriate definition that meets the needs of community pharmacy of the healthcare system and patient to ensure that there is a consensus for integration of community pharmacy in healthcare systems. These definitions should include the key concepts identified, to meet policy objectives. The ultimate objective for community pharmacy is to be a health facility working to health goals, as it can bring many advantages for both for patients improving their health condition and economically to ensure a sustainable healthcare system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maya. Now it's my pleasure to present you Francesca Schtuckel. She is a pharmacist from obtained her pharmacy degree in Germany. Now she also has her PhD in pharmacy practice and policy at the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. And her research focus are on improving access to mental health support and the ethical use of novel technologies in healthcare. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Francesca Schtuckel. I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of Nottingham, and my research project is concerned with evaluating public perspectives on mental health support provided in community pharmacies in England. As part of my research project, a survey was distributed in 15 community pharmacies in Nottinghamshire in March 2020. Initially, we aimed to collect data for 3 weeks, but due to the outbreak of COVID-19, the survey had to be terminated 1 week early. The questionnaire encompassed questions investigating pharmacy users' demographic characteristics and use of community pharmacies, as well as participants' level of trust in pharmacists and their attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies. The obtained data were subjected to descriptive and inferential statistical analysis. The latent structure of the questionnaire was investigated using a Mocken scaling procedure, which is a statistical method to determine questionnaire items which are representative of the same concept and can therefore be summarized to form a scale. Secondly, a multi-level regression model was constructed. The multi-level model was used to determine the relationship between demographic characteristics, trust, and pharmacy users' attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies. 1,474 pharmacy users participated in the survey, the majority of which was female, and almost 1/5 of pharmacy users self-reported a diagnosis of depression and/or anxiety. 4 questionnaire items measuring aspects related to trust in community pharmacists were found to be representative of the same concept. Those were summarized to form a scale. The majority of pharmacy users was found to exhibit high levels of trust in pharmacists. 5 questionnaire items related to mental health support in pharmacies were found to measure the same underlying concept. Thus, the items were summarized to form a scale. Both scales were then included in a multi-level regression model, the trust scale as the independent variable and the attitude scale as the dependent variable. Pharmacy users who exhibited higher levels of trust in pharmacists were found to express more positive attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies. We further found pharmacy users who self-reported a diagnosis of depression and/or anxiety to exhibit less positive attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies, while a more frequent use of pharmacies was found to result in more positive attitudes. And to conclude, 2 new scales measuring pharmacy users' level of trust in pharmacists and their attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies were constructed. The scales demonstrated favorable properties. Trust was found to have a significant effect on pharmacy users' attitudes towards mental health support provided in pharmacies. Further research exploring how trust is developed and maintained in the pharmacy context may be useful to identify measures which strengthen public trust in community pharmacists, which could prospectively have a positive effect on public acceptance of mental health support provided in pharmacies.
Thank you very much. Very nice, Francesca. Please don't forget to refer your questions on the chat box and refer to the name of the presenters to enable further discussion later. Our next presenter is Hannah. She's from the Robert Gordon University in Qatar. She's a clinical pharmacist and member of the Hamad General Hospital. She's bachelor degree in pharmacy was obtained in 2007 in Egypt. Her master degree is in clinical pharmacy in the Queen's University of Belfast, UK. She's a PhD student at the Robert Gordon University in Qatar, and she is engaged in many research projects in the clinical field and provides continuing education to patients, patients' family, and medical staff. Welcome, Hannah.
Hello, this is Rana Mustafa. I'm going to present our project, The Effect of Migration on the Incidence of a New Onset Metabolic Syndrome in Migrants to Qatar. This is the research team. There is substantial evidence that migration to Western countries is associated with increased risk of metabolic syndrome. However, there is paucity of data about the incidence of a new onset metabolic syndrome in migrants from different countries to Qatar and the Middle East. As a result, an important health problem is overlooked and prevention measures are absent. This study is relevant to Qatar due to the growing migrant population within Qatar, which represents 95% of the workforce and 84% of the total population. This study aimed to investigate the effect of migration on the incidence of a new onset metabolic syndrome following 24 months of residency in the Middle East among a group of migrants employed at Hamad Medical Corporation. This is a prospective longitudinal observational study. Migrants aged 18 to 65 years old employed at Hamad Medical Corporation were invited to consent and to participate. Baseline screening for metabolic syndrome was conducted. Parameters included glycated hemoglobin, triglycerides, high-density lipoprotein cholesterol, blood pressure, and waist circumference. Migrants with normal metabolic parameters at baseline were invited to be rescreened 24 months post-migration, and the same parameters were measured again. The IDF consensus worldwide definition of the metabolic syndrome was employed to diagnose metabolic syndrome. Inferential statistics were applied to compare results before and after migration. Throughout the study, migrants with metabolic abnormalities were referred to physicians for further management. The results of the 1,379 identified migrants, 472 consented to participate, and 205 migrants with normal metabolic parameters were followed up 24 months of residency in the Middle East. The incidence of metabolic syndrome within this group with normal parameters rose to 17% after 24 months residing in Qatar. 81% developed at least one element of metabolic syndrome, and migrants receiving medication that potentially induce metabolic syndrome were 5 times more likely to develop metabolic syndrome. The conclusion: the incidence of metabolic syndrome amongst Qatar migrants increases following residency in Qatar. However, it's lower than that estimated in many developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's move forward to the presentation that was submitted by Certina Ho. Certina is a faculty appointment at the Department of Psychiatry and the Leslie Then Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Toronto. Also School of Pharmacy, University of Waterloo, and the Michael G. de Groot School of Medicine, MC Master University. Her focus is on educational program evaluation and scholarship, and the development of patient medication safety and quality improvement curriculum. The presenter today will be Elaine Ma. She's a PharmD student at the Leslie Then Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Toronto in Canada, and she joined Dr. Certina Ho in 2020 at the University Summer Research Program hosted by the faculty, and has since the effort towards bettering patient safety for Canadians.
Hi, my name is Elaine, and today I'll be presenting the quality improvement results for an online learning initiative developed at the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Toronto in Canada. The project was led by faculty member Certina Ho. So for our project, we used the Virtual Interactive Case, or VIC system, and we created patient or medication safety online teaching modules that focused on 3 processes. First was medication incident disclosure, second, root cause analysis, and third, failure mode and effects analysis. Then the VIC teaching modules were pilot tested in May 2020. So a 16-item online questionnaire was given to pharmacists and pharmacy students in Ontario, Canada, and that was in June 2020 to assess user experience. Our 18 respondents contained a good mix of licensed pharmacists and pharmacy students, and most of them had at least 1 year of practice experience. Based on the results of our online questionnaire, the VIC teaching modules were perceived to be relevant and applicable to patient care settings and helpful with enhancing patient safety in practice. They left most respondents confident in implementing the processes that were introduced, and also respondents agreed that the material presented was clear and easy to follow, feasible to implement in a patient care setting, and increase their knowledge about patient or medication safety. So here are some highlights of comments from the respondents. They generally found that the modules were clear and easy to follow, and the scenarios were thought to be realistic. A few respondents indicated areas that the modules could be improved on, such as calling for better utilization of the interactive nature of the VIC platform to increase learner engagement, and putting text-heavy didactic content in other formats. So in conclusion, the VIC teaching modules were well received. The use of the VIC platform can be extended to other areas of pharmacy practice, like minor ailment prescribing training or community health scenario simulations for healthcare practitioners and students. This online format could also be valuable and applicable with the transition to online teaching and learning in the current COVID-19 pandemic. So we'd also like to acknowledge the 2017 Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy Teaching and Innovation Award that supported the development of the VIC teaching modules, as well as the pharmacy students from the 2 pharmacy schools in Ontario, Canada, which are the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy and the School of Pharmacy at the University of Waterloo, for all their help in the development of the modules. We also want to thank the respondents who participated in our online questionnaire. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. And now, last but not least, it's my pleasure to present to you Matthew Dimarco. Matthew is a research coordinator and a part-time graduate student at the University of Waterloo School of Pharmacy in Ontario, Canada. And he's also academic detailer, clinical pharmacist at Center for Effective Practice. Let's hear.
Hello, my name is Matthew Dimarco, and it is my pleasure to be presenting to you as a graduate student from the University of Waterloo School of Pharmacy under the supervision of Dr. Nancy Waite on the right-hand side, and moving towards your left, Dr. Shaylin Houle, in collaboration with our liaison librarian, Caitlin Carter. And at the top, we can see the title for today's work, The Role of Pharmacy Technicians in Vaccination Services, a Scoping Review. Next, a little bit of background for today's work includes that a busy pharmacy workload may limit a pharmacist's ability to meet the needs of vaccine-willing patients and contribute to missed opportunities to engage with vaccine-hesitant individuals. With proper training, opportunities for pharmacy technicians to support vaccination services may play a role in addressing increasing patient vaccination needs. And this leads us to our research problem that no research to date has mapped the professional practice literature that explores the roles of pharmacy technicians in vaccination services. The purpose of this work was to answer the research question on the left-hand side. What is known from the literature about the role of pharmacy technicians in vaccination services? Our approach to this question included conducting a scoping review to systematically map the extent, range, and nature of the research on pharmacy technician vaccination service roles. A search was subsequently conducted in June 2020 across 5 large databases seeking studies that describe the roles of pharmacy technicians in vaccination services, collected and reported qualitative or quantitative outcome data pertaining to performing the described roles, and was published in French, English, or Spanish. Worth noting, the search terms for pharmacy technicians were broad and included 19 varieties. The search results included, after duplicates were removed, 483 articles, and after first screening, once again using the main criteria on the right-hand side, left us with 145 articles after screening titles and abstracts, and after full text screening, we were left with 14 included articles. And now on to some more results. After data was extracted from our 14 included studies, we found that 8 studies characterized pharmacy technician roles in patient vaccination screening, defined by identifying eligible patients and documenting. 5 studies characterized pharmacy technician roles in injectable vaccine administration, and 1 study characterized traditional pharmacy technician roles. We also found it quite valuable to then categorize each of the aforementioned roles, going down from top to bottom on the left-hand side, across the patient outcome, or the outcomes going from left to right across your screen, with training outcomes, workflow outcomes, and patient outcomes to better characterize each of the roles. And now on to some key findings from our results. First, we had a positive patient outcome effect from both emerging pharmacy technician roles in patient screening and injectable vaccine administration. Second, pharmacy technicians felt more comfortable administering injectable vaccines than conducting vaccine screening. This is attributed to the complexity of the vaccine screening role. Third, training pharmacy technicians to perform vaccine screening resulted in increased workload and subsequently challenged the pharmacy's workflow. Lastly, pharmacists and technicians advocated for technician injectable vaccine administration training due to the consistent benefits in pharmacy workflow, efficiency, pharmacist clinical time, and pharmacy technician job satisfaction. Future research that builds on this work can be focused on the potential cumulative effect of a vaccination service model that is comprised of traditional pharmacy technician roles in addition to emerging pharmacy technician roles in patient screening and administration of injectable vaccines. There was also an absence of cost-effective data regarding allocating pharmacy technicians to vaccination service program roles. Otherwise, I wanted to thank you for your time today. My name is Matthew Dimarco from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, wishing everyone a fantastic day.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That was all for our presentations. I appreciate all the presenters that are here and they're sharing your knowledge. I'll stop sharing my screen for us to go to the discussion. So let's see here on the chat box what we have from our comments. Let me start. So we have some comments on the great presentations, the comic strip are a great concept. So this question is from Yang. Are the strips available somewhere? This question was made by Eva.
Hi. Thank you for the interest. There were a lot of questions, so I had to prepare some of them. No, they're not available yet. They're printed, and we wanted to, my supervisor, Professor Granos, and I want to present this idea to the Norwegian Pharmacy Association. And then we'll see if there's something more we could work on it. So it's like something like this. Yes. Should
Okay.
the other questions as well?
Yeah, let me see. We have others. If you want to talk about it, you can. Yeah.
I have we have illustrated 9 situations. So I have a summary over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is mostly just pictures or animations. So it should be able to use worldwide. So I don't see, is it like mirrored or is it not?
No, is it not? It's okay.
So this is take in the morning and take this before breakfast and take in the evening. Do not store in the fridge and out of reach for the children. And this is the, how do you call it? Alert triangle that you should wait after a few hours before driving. And this is the most popular one, the generic substitution, because everyone has that trouble when we work at a community pharmacy. And this is interaction to do not combine 2 pills at one time. So this is quite flexible because you can write like levothyroxine here, and in the morning, and then you can write calcium here in the evening. And also this is cortisone and a moisturizer, how long you should wait. So, and also Charlotte Rossing did mention that FIP. So we also saw some of the pictures about how to treat eczema and in pictures. So it was very great inspiration source. And the most difficult one is alendronate oral that you should take in the morning, one time in a week. And you should be standing when taking it, and you should wait half an hour before eating something. So there's more to work. There's a lot of other situations that we could come up with. So yes, I think it's possible to use it at other countries as well.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. You already answered the question from Maitina Teicher. And congratulations on your work. It's very, very interesting. And I think others can benefit from this kind of knowledge. So let's move on to a question to Noelia from Spain. What are the top 3 minor ailment interventions were record document in your study? This question was made by Sertina Hu. I don't know if Noelia can hear us.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now, yes.
Well, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, we are studying 31 minor ailments, and they're in total distributed in 5 groups. The groups are for upper respiratory tract related symptoms, pain related symptoms, digestive, dermatological symptoms, and other minor ailments. And the 3 minor ailments that were most frequently referred to the GP according to the protocols agreed with medical association were back pain, cough, and eczema. And these are the results for the first 8 months of the study. This is a study that is going to be carried out through 12 months, and this is our preliminary data.
Okay, thank you very much. And continue with you, Noelia. Question from Charlotte, also on minor ailment. She said, very impressive project and huge study. Could you share how you and your group managed to run such a big study, big project?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is a huge study. We're carrying the study through the whole country. It's at the national level, and this study is being coordinated between the University of Granada and the Spanish Society of Community Pharmacy. And we also count with the support of pharmacies, a pharmacy association from 7 different provinces in Spain. And we have a main group of three researchers who coordinate the 33 practice change facilitators involved in the study. And there's at least one practice change facilitator for each of the 24 provinces we have included. So a mean of 30 pharmacists for each facilitator. So what we do is we have weekly meetings between the researcher group, and then we analyze the data and we send the data to our practice change facilitator. And we have 2 different groups for the 33 facilitators, and we have monthly meetings with them so we can analyze the progress of each group of pharmacists, and also they can access to the IT system and they can see the progress of their pharmacist every day is alive. So that way we can control from the top to all the pharmacies included in the study.
Thank you very much. Very nice, and congratulations on the work. So getting back to Noelia, just to maybe finish the discussion, another question is, would you mind to explain why the use of comic strips, but not other types of nonverbal communications too, can be useful?
This was because of part of the observation when I saw that
when there was a language barrier occurred, people like waving the hands and they pointing at things. So there aren't many devices available, and if there is, who should pay for that? That's another question though. But most of the frequent solution when there is a language barrier occurred is that they use bilingual staff. It can be medical or not medical. And when I researched on my little research, I saw that some countries are really advanced and they do print labels, medication labels in other languages too. But then you need to translate it and it needs to be validated. So I wanted to propose something that doesn't have to go through that many processes. So pictures, like they say 1,000 words for one picture. And I think that we should test more to cover if there's cultural sensitivity about how to understand the pictures. Because I have in the tests where we test guessability, present these pictures to the Vietnamese participant, and they thought that this was meant to, you should take the pill and then you should eat within half an hour. Because in Vietnam, when you take oral medicine, you wanted to protect the ventricle. So this is something that we should cover before making this worldwide.
Okay, thank you, very nice again. I think there's a lot of people interested, so maybe if you can share your contact or get the emails of the people that are putting on the chat box.
Sure, I will put my mail on the chat.
Yeah. And I have one question to Francesca. I want to, if possible, to share a little bit more about your experience on the field of mental health. I think it's very interesting and it's a topic of further research. I don't know if Francesca is available.
Sorry, I am. I just I struggled to get my Zoom going. Could you just quickly repeat your question, please? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more about our role, or the role of pharmacists in the field of mental health, because I think it's an interesting topic and we can further discuss that.
Yeah, I think pharmacists have a great role to play in mental health service provision in general. I think there was a policy paper published by the FIP in 2015, which lined out several action points for pharmacists, whether there is health promotion of mental health and well-being, whether there is getting actively involved in identifying individuals who might be at risk of having mental health issues, or whether that is medication management. So there's, I think, a lot of areas where pharmacists can get involved. I'm mostly interested in the identification part, and that's the second bit of my PhD, where I'm looking at purchases of OTC medication and how they relate to the onset of mental health conditions, and how we could use that sort of information to improve mental health support provided in pharmacies.
Great, thank you. And what were your major challenges during your PhD?
I think COVID was a major challenge, obviously. So I think that was problematic. Other than that, actually, I have to say, it was actually quite an engaging dialogue with the public, because I think, especially in UK, there's a lot of awareness that we have to find better ways to support people who have mental health issues. So I did the surveys, I did interviews, and I had really, really engaging discussions, especially around mental health, and people were really open-minded. And due to COVID, I had to change my methodology a lot, going from conducting focus groups to doing interviews. And these one-to-one interviews were actually really helpful, and people were really open in talking about their mental health issues and how pharmacy could help in supporting them. Yeah, that was really, like, I was actually really surprised, to be honest.
Great, thank you very much, and congratulations on your work. I don't see any other questions here on the chat box. Just referring to the comment of Charlotte, please also share all your information or your projects on our Facebook group that is also on the chat box. If nobody wants to comment anything else, I can address to Victoria.
Okay, thank you very much, Fernanda, for sharing this session. And also thank you very much for all our great presenters during the 3-minute presentations. We had a lot of submissions, so it was a very tough assessment and decision to choose only 20 presentations, but I think all of them were great. There was an earlier question regarding how to submit abstracts for future events. So just keep an eye on the FIP newsletter and communication, because these kind of events will be announced through the usual FIP channels, and you will be able to submit your abstract through the FIP website. So as I mentioned during the opening session, at the end of this event, we will have the Professor Olivia Vignon Award. So we will have a winner and a runner-up of the research presentations that we have seen and shared today. So just keep an eye and stay with us until the closing session. It's the end of the research presentation, so now it's time to move on to our workshops and also our networking event. So as you know, we will host 3 different workshops on medication adherence research, on systematic reviews and meta-analysis, and another one on health economics. So you should be able to choose what workshop you want to go to shortly. So just keep an eye on the screen, because you will have to allocate yourself to one of the workshops. So the workshops will be run for 1 hour. We have different experts in the field, which you will see. And then after the workshop, you will have to remain in the room, because we will host a networking event just after the workshop. So you don't have to leave the room or anything, just remain in the room, because I think that will be very exciting, and that will put you in touch with people who share the same research interests as you. So we hope you enjoy the workshop and the networking event, and we will all be packed into the main room in 1 hour and a half. So if you go into the breakout rooms option, you should be able to choose what room you want to go to.
I hope you have enjoyed yourself. This is just to show that we have basically been all over the world. It was very obvious this morning when we all signed in, and there was hellos from all over the world. But also it was good to see that that when we had the presentations, we were also traveling from place to place all the time. So for the closing, we will just say it was nice seeing you all. It was really great. And then we have some information for you. First of all, of course, not to any surprise, I would once again advertise for the Facebook group. And it's just because that the network is so very crucial and very important for all of us during these times. And when we are only able to meet online, we should also use the online networking possibilities. And this Facebook group is one of the possibilities for this particular group. We have more than 3,000 members. So if you reach out to this group, you'll actually have access to 3,000 researchers from all over the world. And there's probably someone out there that has the same interests for you as you have. We will do, based on the different workshops, we'll do small reports on what was in there. So for the rest of you to see what has been produced, but also to share with the rest of this research community. And now comes the very, very important part of this closing ceremony, namely the prizes. So I'm happy now to announce the winners of the Professor Olivia Vignon Award, like Victoria said in the opening of the session or this event today. We had the opportunity to give this award, and we will name this award onwards in respect because we miss, and he has shown so much for us, Olivier Vignon, over the years. Coming up to this conference, we wrote his family and his son, which is also a pharmacist, and told them that we wanted to do this award. And he said that this would be so nice for Olivier because he was actually very engaged in motivating the research among young researchers and senior researchers in this area, and pharmacy practice was always close at heart to him. So let's give him a thought. So the winner of the Olivier Vignon Award, the first Olivier Vignon Award, is Denise Hope from Australia with her presentation on gamification. So let's clap or whatever we do. We will make certificates for you that will be sent after. And then we also have the runners, so the running up, so the second prize, and that goes to Matthew Dimarco from Canada on his scoping review on pharmacy technician and their roles in immunization. So congratulations to both of you. We'd like to thank you once again for all the very good abstracts. We had a hard work finding the 20 and even harder work to find the 2. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for sharing your research. I'm sure that this is relevant for all of us, and we all take one or two ideas home that we can use in our future work. Thank you very much. And now I will give the word to YPD, the Young Pharmacist Group, and the Professional Innovation Grant that they manage. Can somebody from the YPG open their mic and take it from here? I'll do the slides forward. Thank you. Philippa was unfortunately, she had to go, so I think someone else would take over from her.
Very good day to everyone. I'm Abubakar Usman, and I will take over from Philippa.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So basically here I will be discussing about the FIP-YPG Professional Innovation Grants. And for the start, I would like to mention the goal of the project of the Professional Innovation Grants. And the goal of the Professional Innovation Grants is to support innovation or promote innovation among young pharmacists as well as young pharmaceutical scientists. Such innovations should be innovations that will address either local or global health issues that could advance pharmacy profession, promote or improve the quality of pharmaceutical services that are rendered to patients. Next slide. So usually every year we actually award a grant. We award the grant every year. But unfortunately, in the last 2 years, we've not been able to do so due to the COVID pandemic. But hopefully next year, in the first quarter of the year, the application is going to open. And for the one important thing we actually stress is that each of the projects that is our proposal that is being submitted should have a positive impact on the community, as well as has a direct clinical impact, our application. Each year, like I mentioned earlier, like I said, the project should have, there are 2 criteria that we look for, 2 issues that we pay attention to. The first one is that the project should have a positive impact on the community. The second, it should have a direct clinical application. This is something we do pay so much attention to when we review the proposals that have been submitted. Next slide. So in every year, the winner will be announced after the proposals have been reviewed, and the winner of the awardee will receive a grant of 1,000 euros to assist with the implementation of the projects. A year after, we expect the awardee to submit a project report to the FIP Foundation for Educational Research, and the winner will then be entitled to a complimentary registration and a return ticket, as well as accommodation to attend the FIP Annual Congress. So at the Congress, the awardee or the winner of the award is expected to present the findings of the projects in a poster format. Next slide. So the next issue I will talk about is the eligibility of the applicants. For you to be eligible as an applicant, you must be a member of FIP, YPG. So you must be a member of the Young Pharmacist group. And usually for applications, we expect each applicant to submit only one proposal on his or her name. Group work, we encourage people to work in a team, but group work should be submitted under the name of one person. For previous winners of the award, they are not allowed to apply again. In addition, we focus on projects. We encourage applicants to focus on projects that could be completed within 1 year, and do not encourage applicants to take up additional fundings from other bodies to support the project that has been awarded. Next slide. So we value the importance of mentorship because we know mentorship is important in what's building research competence among young pharmacists as well as young pharmaceutical scientists. So we actually have a program, a mentorship program, where we encourage each applicant to identify a mentor who could help them to design as well as conduct the project that they are submitting. So in view of this, the applicants are required to identify a research mentor who will assist them to conduct the research. For applicants who could not or cannot identify a mentor, we don't. There's no problem about that. We encourage you to send us an email at ypginnovationgrant@fipinnovationgrant@fip.org. So once we receive your email, we will help you to identify a mentor that will assist you with the writing of the proposal as well as conducting the research when it is awarded. Next slide. So the next issue is the Georgian process. After the proposals have been submitted, we actually have a panel will be constituted, and this panel will be nominated by the FIP Young Pharmacist Group Steering Committee, and this panel has to be approved by the FIP Foundation. So the panel will then review all the proposals that have been submitted, and for these, we have about 5 criteria that we use to review the proposal before the winner will eventually emerge. Next issue on the slide. All right. For the criteria that we use, we have 5 criteria, like I mentioned earlier. We look forward to the significance as well as the relevance of the project that is being submitted. For this, we have a weightage of 25 points that is awarded to this. The next issue is the creativity and innovation of the projects. We have 20 points for the scientific accuracy has 20 points. Clarity of communication has 15 points. Feasibility and skill has 20 points. For feasibility, we look forward to projects that could be completed within 1 year. And this is very important when we review the proposals. Next slide.
That's it for you. So thank you. Do you have any closing remarks?
All right. So like I mentioned earlier, at we will open the applications for the grants in the first quarter of 2022. And for prospective or interested applicants, please, you can start writing your proposal, focusing on the projects that have impact on the community as well as have a direct clinical application. We hope to see you next year in the Congress.
Thank you very much. And I promise you, we hope to see you too. We hope that we will be able to see each other in Seville next year. But thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
And I hope also that we actually have. do you have any closing remarks?
I thought you have a question.
Are there any questions? No.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. So we hope to see each other at the Seville events and then after, but we as researchers hope to see you soon, sooner. Because we hope to see each other already in Lausanne. If you go to the web, you can find this event, the Pharmacy Practice Research event. It was supposed to be a summer meeting, that's why it's called Lausanne 2020. It will be in January 2022 from the 24th to the 26th. And we'll have a physical meeting similar to this. Of course, we will have much more time for networking. We will have much more time for plenary sessions and much more time for both longer and shorter presentations. And we will also have a poster gallery like we had at the summer meeting in Lisbon a few years back. So we hope that you will register. We have 160 registrants from last year, and we will of course approach all of them. And then hope, of course, that many of you will come. So everything is on the website, how to approach. I hope to see you in person, or we hope to see you in person in the next meeting in Lausanne in January. And that is pretty much it from us. We'd like to thank you for being in this meeting. It was great having you. It's the first time we have a meeting like this. And it was really nice to see you all. And if there's any closing remarks or comments, please feel free to share them with your colleagues. Just turn on your mic or write in your chat.
Charlotte?
Yes?
Can I just ask, do you have an idea what would be like the format for the winter meeting? Roughly.
Rough format, actually the program is in there. So it will be a mixture of plenary sessions. Then we'll have workshops, but that will be half-day workshops. So we'll have like 3 hours to work on a specific topic. And then we will have 3 minutes presentations and poster views. So that's pretty much the format. It's very important what we learned in Lisbon a few years back. It's very good and very useful for many of us to see a lot of projects introduced and then to be able to go down and see the poster afterwards. And we will try to do something similar in the Lausanne meeting. Hope to see you there, Suzette. Any other comments on the closing? Does not seem like it. Then I would just like to say, maybe Victoria and Fernandez has something to say. I'll just like to say it's been great having you. This was a trial and you proved that it is possible in these strange times to actually meet and talk validly about research. Thank you very much for that.
Yes. Likewise, I would like to thank all our attendees. We hope that you really enjoyed the event. As Charlotta was saying, this was the first time we've run a virtual event like this, so it was a bit of a trial. So hopefully we will be able to see you face to face in Lisbon. Keep an eye because you can still submit your abstract. It will be open until November 2021, so we would love to have you there. And I would also like to thank the FIP events team for all their support during the organization of the event, and also to the BPS for their support as well. So thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you.
Thank you all for participating.